Welcome to the Safety Net with Kendell Lenice. This is a talk show where you can feel safe to share your truth. After all, we've all been through something. We all have a story to tell. Our testimonies are never for us. They're to help and inspire others to think bigger, do better, to become wiser. Through our stories and testimonies, we can help each other heal, grow, and learn from our past mistakes in order to have a brighter and better future. It's not what you've been through, it's what you've grown through. This is the Safety Net. I got you. Our live show starts now. Hi, welcome to the Safety Net with Kendell Lenice. This is a talk show where you can feel safe to share your truths. I'm so excited about this show because today we are going to be talking about childhood trauma. As you all know, childhood trauma is something that all of us deal with, and we bring it into adulthood. Now, when people think of childhood trauma, they think of molestation or rape or something tragic, but childhood trauma could be something small that you may think is small, but then it shows up in your adulthood in a large way. So today's show, we're going to be talking about childhood trauma. There are a lot of adults out here walking around in their little girl and their little boy emotions, but their grown-up body. So we're going to talk about that with our guest today and a whole lot more. Stay tuned. Welcome to today's show. I'm sitting here with today's guest. This is Temia Holloway, and we will be talking about childhood trauma. Thank you so much for joining me on the Safety Net with Kendell Lenice. I appreciate you here. So we're going to get into a lot today. Absolutely. So hopefully someone can learn from her story, and you'll see yourself in her story, and you will begin to heal. So I'm going to talk about childhood trauma and how childhood trauma affects us as adults, because a lot of people don't realize the stuff that we go through as children show up in our adult lives. Absolutely. Can you think of a time where that's happened to you when you had the revelation, like, okay, this is something that I dealt with? You know, because sometimes we have attachment issues, we have issues with abuse, issues with neglect, issues with just learning how to love and learning how to hug and all of that. Can you think of some of your childhood issues that you've had that are shaping and forming into your adulthood?
Well, there are many. There probably are many. I'm still learning them as I mature. I think relationships, even female, like a friendship, you and I, or a male female relationship, as I'm growing up, I'm learning that what I saw is what I've been practicing, and I am now realizing that everything I saw maybe I shouldn't be doing. So an example of that is I was raised by my grandparents, and being raised by my grandparents, you know, they did things differently. You know, there wasn't always a lot of intimacy that you saw. It may have been behind closed doors, but I never saw it.
What do you mean?
So I've never really saw my grandparents kiss. Okay. I never saw them, you know, she may come in from a long day and may get a kiss, but it was, you know, hey, how was your day? And dinner's in the kitchen, and she may be off doing what she does, and my grandfather worked several jobs, so he may be off somewhere, going off somewhere to do what he does. So there was no, you know, come in, embrace, have a moment, just them two. I never saw that. I'm not going to say that it didn't happen. They were married for years, so there had to be some type of intimacy, but I never saw it. So for me, I remember when I was married, it was my husband would come home, dinner's ready, dealing with the kids, figuring out what was next, what we doing tomorrow. We already on tomorrow. Right. Instead of just having some one-on-one time, just my husband and I. You know, we eventually learned how to do that because fortunately enough, he came from a family that did do that. That did show, that hugged and checked in, and it was adult time and things like that. So it was some things that he taught me. So those things sometimes took a part in our marriage. I think the biggest thing for me being as though I was raised by my maternal grandparents. I think for me the biggest thing was just understanding the difference between dividing what a secret of the home should be and what, really is something that should come to the forefront for me to to get where I am today.
Yeah, like sweeping things under the rug.
Correct.
Because as families, we tend to sweep things under the rug. What happens in this home stays in this home.
Correct.
And what happens is we begin to fester things, and we begin to not be able to decipher what's wrong, what's right, what should be told, what shouldn't be told. And then we're holding on to these family secrets and they're hurting us. But we're trying to protect everybody else.
Correct. I think that's a big issue in the African American home right now.
For sure.
I believe that, we still say it to our children today. Listen, what goes on in our home, you're not supposed to take out there.
It's family business.
It's family business. But some things, that's why now so many people are coming forward with, I was molested when I was a child. I was abused when I was a child. Because we couldn't determine which was supposed to be kept a secret and which wasn't. Like, it wasn't like, oh, I'm telling mommy wore pink panties today. No, that was something serious that probably should have been spoken about early on. And then it could have maybe have been addressed differently. But like you said, it's festering now. Either I become an abuser, and /maybe in a different way. I might not rape someone, but in my home, we were verbally abused. My mother yelled. My grandmother/mother yelled. So when I raised my children, I learned to yell. But when I hear my daughter yelling, I say right away, that's not the right way. Well, you did it. You're absolutely right. I did it. But I want to show you a different way. Let's try to find a different way.
Because it's up to us to really try to break the cycles of our past. And earlier we were talking about breaking cycles and not repeating patterns that we have in families. And you're right. If you grow up with yelling, then you're going to yell.
Correct.
And that's just the way that you communicate. That's just the way that families communicate.
Correct.
If you're just tuning in, we're sitting here with Temia Holloway. We're talking about childhood traumas and how they affect us as adults. So it's really important to watch the patterns, because sometimes if we have generation after generation after generation doing something and we're seeing it, we don't even know that something is wrong.
Absolutely. Even I think when we were speaking earlier about some things about, a child being in the womb, I think that is I never really realized that I never saw someone really have intimacy while they're pregnant. And when I say intimacy, just how now you see they're taking the pictures, the couples are doing the pictures, and you were pregnant, you went to the hospital, you had a baby. When I came along.
That's
you
true.
didn't there wasn't really much that was, it was either a secret, I mean, regardless of whether you were
a teenager
or an adult, unmarried, especially unmarried out of wedlock. It was like, oh, Temia was pregnant and now Temia has this beautiful baby. So I think for that is one of the most serious things. Now the girls are like, I'm pregnant. They're like 3 weeks pregnant. You're like,
but isn't that something? It's like now it's celebrated.
Absolutely.
But it's interesting with that, because in the generation now, you're right. Everybody is taking pregnancy photos. Everyone is, whether they're married, whether they're a teenager, whether they're still with the baby daddy
it
or
don't
husband,
matter. They can have 5 kids and 5 baby mamas. 5 baby daddies, and they still having baby shower. They're celebrating life like your shirt. But and they should, as they should. But when I was pregnant, I was still trying to hang with my friends and still trying to do the norm and still try to act like I'm still normal, but whereas though I wasn't being embraced by the adult community, my church community. I remember as being pregnant and coming up in my church home, it was, like...
So why do you think that is?
I just think it's the past generation of how they handle it. Because before us, if you think about it, people used to send kids down south.
And then they come back with a baby.
And then they come back
or
and it's their sister. Right, and then it's their sister or they're the auntie or whatever.
Right.
You know, so I think it's just a generational thing. Yeah. And thank goodness that has been broken in some areas because these children are not ashamed and they shouldn't be. Yeah. You know, they really shouldn't be. They should be celebrating life because no one gets pregnant by accident. You know, that person's birth is for a reason. Right. You know, and God designed you to be their mom. Right. But we need to be teaching that, you know, even when our young adults get pregnant. Yes, you got pregnant. Let's work towards becoming a wife. Let's work towards being a phenomenal mother so that someone will recognize it. Because you can still be
a wife again.
Absolutely.
But see, what I think, and that's where I think the shame begins, because everybody makes mistakes. If that's a mistake, I'm still on.
I'm still on the line.
Exactly. If that's a mistake, because if God meant that baby to come,
it's gonna get here.
It's gonna get
exactly.
Here. So, but I think that's where some of the shame begins for a lot of people with you know, hiding that you're pregnant because you don't have a husband or have a, you know, we of course know biblical beliefs and religious beliefs, and we're not saying go against that.
Correct.
But if something happens. Correct. And you get pregnant,
you still have to embrace them.
You still have to embrace them. You still have to.
You don't shine them. Another example of just my childhood memories is when I think about my locks. I didn't go natural until my mother. She had dementia, and I didn't go natural until I knew that she couldn't make a comment because in my home, growing up, it was either your hair was too nappy. You know what I mean? And let's go get it right, and let's go get it straightened. Yeah. So I don't know what she may have said. She may have embraced it. She was a barber, and she dealt with every texture hair there was. But when it came to me, you never saw me with cornrows too often.
That's interesting. My grandmother was the same way. It was like a certain stereotype.
When you go for a job interview, your hair is to be in place. This is how you're supposed to look. This is how you're supposed to talk. And yes, there are standards to those things, but my hair should not determine who I am as an employee.
That's right.
So when I became, you know, you went on this journey with me with getting my lock. I was terrified. And I never really shared with too many people about that. Yes, I was terrified about getting locked. I was like, oh my God, if my mother saw me now, she would go crazy. And everybody's like, well, your hair is beautiful. I'm like,
it
not
is beautiful.
Not thank you.
But
not
you know, but that is true. And when I first went natural, I did a blog post.
Right.
And I wrote this whole article. And you know, some people are like, well, it's just hair. You just cut it off. You can have it the way you want. But if you come from a family or a friend group that everything as far as African American hair is permed, it's in place, it's bumped, it's wrapped, it's whatever, and it's not natural. Because out of all our friends that we grew up with, you and I, you know, I know you have friends that have on that other side, but you and I are the only ones with natural hair.
Right, absolutely. I think, you know, the first time I saw, I want to say one of the girls in my neighborhood, she had locks, and I just thought they were beautiful, but it wasn't an option for me. It wasn't even a thought. Yeah, it wasn't even an option for me. I was like, oh my God. But she always was, you know, the Afrocentric. She was at the beat of her own drum, but you know. And she was beautiful. She, you know. But when I looked at it, it wouldn't look for me.
Isn't that something when you think about her and think about people like that? It's funny because that's something that might have been standard in her family,
in her home.
Or okay to be free, or okay to be an individual or unique, or it's okay to celebrate your blackness and your kinky hair and your tightly coiled hair, and that's what showed up in her adult life. Whereas if you were taught that your hair is nappy or it looks a certain way, then it's almost like, okay, well, I don't want to do that.
Correct.
When I first went natural, my mom the same way. Because I cut off all my hair, you know, as long as it was permed, you know, doing different things with it. And she was just looking and like she could not understand, like, why would I do that? Because in the black community, your hair is your glory, and in some biblical and religions, that your hair is, you're not supposed to cut your hair, or you're not supposed to wear it like this, or so then you grow up with almost like a complex.
And the complex. So going back to just our childhood memories, and you know, for those that don't know, Kendell and I have known each other since the 7th, 8th grade. So
that was like 2 weeks ago.
Just about, just about. But there were things that I dealt with. I've always been, as you know, a very, as they say, bossy person, or I've always been a leader. I never, but you know me, and there were areas in my life where I followed, and I followed some of the girls in junior high school and things like that. And I remember, just because of that, my hair situation. My hair wasn't always the straightest because I had thick hair.
But you always thought your hair was nappy.
There you go.
And it wasn't.
There you go.
But you always thought that. And you were permanent like crazy.
Yes, I was going behind closed doors.
And your hair is beautiful.
Correct. But think about it. I always wanted to fit in. But if anyone that's watching this now that knows me would be like, Temia, aka Fiesty, aka whatever, Mama, listen, she wanted to fit in. I wore my mask well, and that is a big thing about our society. We wear our masks well, and it's because of our childhood upbringings. Goes back to you come out that door, you don't let anybody know what's wrong. Well, I'm here to say that it's okay to be transparent. You don't have to tell all your business to be transparent, but that woman sitting next to you that you may not have had a conversation with may need to hear just a piece of transparency.
That's right.
Just in order to be able to get through the next hour.
Yeah.
We're not even talking about the next day.
That's so
I know goal setting.
Because they say it's not tomorrow's not promised. But the next moment is not promised.
But the next moment is not promised.
That's right.
And I mentor girls at the Greater Newark Boys and Girls Club in Delaware, and I love watching girls. We are one of the strongest beings because God knew that, because he gave us childbirth. Childbirth alone. And those that can't have children, it doesn't take away from their strength, because they take on the world as well. Even though they don't have biological children. I know people that don't have biological children, but they caregive. They have nieces, they have nephews. They still have that embedded in them. We're caring people. We're supposed to be the helpmate. We're supposed to. So that doesn't take away from those that don't have children. But I watch those girls, and I tell them all the time, they say, I hear people say, well, what do you want to be when you grow up? You know what I started doing with those girls? What do you want to do in the next year?
Yeah. Goal setting, starting small.
Within the next year.
Right. Because some people don't know what they want to do tomorrow.
In 8th grade, or with Miss Hampton and Mr. Fahrenbach, we could not think about us sitting here. We could not think about
Mr. Fahrenbach.
Mr. No Fingers Fahrenbach. I don't know if he's dead, but Lord, he had no fingers. But
and what kind of teacher was he?
He was a white teacher, and he was a male. And
didn't he teach something else? Didn't he teach something else and he had no fingers? He taught math, but it was something else.
I don't know, but I know he used to touch us with them nubs. But I say that to say that in the 8th grade, you and I were not sitting on a couch talking about what we were going to do.
Right.
We weren't. We were enjoying life. Right. Let's go back to dealing with some life's issues so that we can enjoy life, so that we can celebrate life. Because the things that these kids are wearing on them from their childhood, oh, God bless them. We didn't have those worries. We didn't. Let me correct it. We didn't know about those worries. Our parents probably was trying to figure out how to pay the mortgage, where they were going to get our school lunch from. We had no clue. But those kids are going to school with that worry. Yes. So if I could say anything to the adult today, if you interact with children, allow them to just be stress-free for a moment so that they can celebrate life. Because children are dying. People are having strokes at 40-something years old. Strokes for us was like 60, 70 years old. We like, now I'm close to it. And I'm like, wait a minute, that's not old. Don't be calling me old. But your childhood it is where it all begins. And even, I know there are a lot of us that were raised, as only children because of maybe the distance between our brothers and sisters. I was raised as an only child. I was my mother's only child. That was horrible. But I used it as I'm an only child. I get anything I want. I'm an only child. Now, I'm suffering. I have to call a friend from Maryland to, not that my siblings that I'm dealing with some issues, and I do have some siblings. Not that they wouldn't be there for me, but I used to think that was glory. I'm an only child. I was the best thing since sliced bread. But in the back of my mind, I was like, wow, I wish I had a sister. Wow, I wish I had a brother. And I didn't growing up. I had my uncles, but they were so much older. But those things, again, back to the childhood, I carried that for years, and now I'm able to speak about it.
So you carry what? About just not having somebody that you can connect with?
Just not having a connection. Being raised by,
like there was
a generation. Well, goodness gracious, I had a lot of cousins. Later on in life, I had a lot of cousins. But I was still with that persona of, but I'm the oldest. I'm the only child. You guys are my cousins.
But I think that might have been a way of you, a mask in a way for you to make yourself feel special.
Absolutely.
Because at some point you weren't feeling special.
Absolutely.
Because you felt like you were raised by your grandmother and not your mother.
Correct.
So it was a way to feel wanted, needed, necessary,
I took that into adulthood. I took that still probably till maybe 5 years ago. Like, what do you mean? When I lost mommy 2 years ago, it was, what do you mean? You know what I mean? I'm the golden child. You know what I mean? But she had her own children. And even, some of the things that they may say, like, we didn't like you much because you thought you was, all of that in the bag of chips, Well, I was.
Your family or your...
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. Things that I have realized over the years, that I watched throughout my childhood. I will say this, though. I'm glad they happened. I'm glad that God gave me the discernment to be able to recognize those things that affect me. And I'm glad that I have people in my surroundings that have been through some things, that we can talk through it. We can have, lunches, and all of a sudden something comes up and you be like, wow, I wasn't the only one that dealt with that. You know what I mean? And then you have the girl, we're talking about the kinky hair. Then you had a girl who had the good hair, who didn't want the good hair.
I hate that
She
word.
wanted the kinky hair.
I know, I
the
hate
good hair,
that.
the bad hair,
I
good
hate
hair,
that.
bad.
Because
What's
they
good
say
hair?
good
I
hair
think my hair is good.
But they say good hair is closer to European hair.
Correct.
Caucasian hair, white hair. If it's straight, it's good. If it's a little kinky, the curl is tighter, then it's bad. I say if you got hair on your head and it ain't shit, it's good hair. You know what I mean?
Some people got alopecia and can't grow hair, so.
Yeah, but that's a whole thing too. If we want to talk about that in the black community, and what you take in your, adulthood. Like I had a girlfriend who said when she had children, she's never having children by somebody completely black. Because her hair is nappy and she doesn't want her kids to go through it. And by the way, her hair is not nappy. It never was. I've done her hair before. But she did. She went to have children with a guy who was mixed because she didn't want. So those are things. And then you often wonder, what was she told as a child?
I was getting ready to say.
That her hair wasn't good enough, or come here, let me do your hair. Because we have to watch the subtleties that we tell children. And the little things that we say, come on over here, I can't stand doing your hair because your hair is this way, or I can't, because as adults and as parents and as guardians, we give children complexes.
Absolutely.
And you take them into adulthood. What is the most significant?
You know what? You just made me think of something. I gotta watch how I say. I call my little granddaughter, come here, you little Puerto Rican. I say that all the time. And I may be giving her a complex. Now, she's mixed. She's Puerto Rican and she's black. But she'll correct you and say, no, I'm black. And I may be giving her a complex.
But see, but they're black Puerto Ricans, and that's what people don't understand.
She's both. Her mother is from Puerto Rico, and her father was my son.
But I'm saying, even with Puerto Ricans, a lot of Puerto Ricans refer them to, because they're black. Correct. They're just Puerto Rican descent. Correct. They're still black. They're not African American, but they're still, black. And that's a whole nother show and a whole other thing also. But we don't understand that we do give kids complexes, just like they've given us complexes growing up. And a lot of people don't even know, because you're navigating through your family, you're navigating through life, and this is the way that you've done it, and you don't realize that you're taking past baggage over to adulthood because that's just your way, that's just your family, this is just me. When was the first time that you realized that something from childhood kept showing up in your adulthood?
Whew, that's probably pretty much once I lost my grandfather, which was about age 12. And just, being in a small town and people knowing who my biological mother was, her being unfortunately addicted to drugs, her choosing the path that she chose, either voluntarily or involuntarily, because I still straddle the fence knowing that people say that, an addiction is a sickness. You don't understand how it is to walk down the street and someone say, "Oh my God, you look just like your mom, Debbie." And I denied my mother all my life. Once I found out she was my mother, that's not my mother. Because if she didn't want me, I didn't want her. You understand what I'm saying?
And you looked at it because your grandmother raised you as her.
My grandmother, I knew nothing. I knew nothing but my grandmother, which was Lois Holloway, and my grandfather. Now, the things that I learned later in life about how things took place, whether Debbie wanted to come back and get me, whether it wasn't an option at that point. And anything that they gave off, I gave off. So if it was Debbie couldn't come and get me, I don't want to go with her. You know? But then I used it later on in life to flip the script. And I was like, well, I'm going to live with my mother. And my mother, Lois, said, well, go right ahead.
Right.
You'll be back.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So then when I went out there to search for her.
How old were you at that point?
16.
Okay.
16. And I went and I was like, hey, I want to come live with you. Mommy gets on my nerves. And Debbie's response was, you can't live with me. So now the rejection that I already felt, now I'm a teenager. I bottled that up.
Into rebellion.
And I became rebellious. I became a runaway. I became a fighter. Nothing you could say to me. Everything was quick. I was quick fire. And then at that age is when I started seeking the male comfort. The male wanting me. So at that age is when now, we're meeting the boy in school and he's the best thing since sliced bread because he's telling you how pretty your nappy hair is. You understand what I'm saying?
Right.
He's telling you how nice you look. And not that I didn't get that at home with my grandmother.
It's different
it was
because
different.
Even though you have a grandmother raising you, a grandmother loving you, no matter how she was or the verbal abuse or just whatever, just how the language that was spoken, the communication in your home, this happens to a lot of children who are not raised by their biological parents. I've seen it time and time again, even now, and even thinking of some of my friends like you and other friends whose grandmothers have raised them or whose aunts have raised them. No matter how much love and care and compassion that person who raises you shows you, you still yearn for the love of your biological parents.
And we talked about
and that
earlier.
Rejection is hard.
Rejection is hard. And I told you when we had an off-camera conversation about the child being connected to the mother with the cord. And we sometimes think about that cord as only being avenue of that child eating. That's how the child is getting its vitamins. That's how that child is receiving. If
energy
you think
too.
About how God produces, how God allows women to produce, you take that and you think about that is the energy, that is what you think, that is what you it is a connection. And when they cut that, it only takes half of what you did, and your other half goes back to you. And that child now carries that internally. And I think about when I buried my biological mother, my uncle stood up and he said, there's only two people in this room that was connected solely to my sister. He said, her only daughter, Temia, and my mother. Because at one point, Debbie was connected to mommy. And think about it. Whatever mommy carried, whatever Lois carried and dumped into Debbie, Debbie carried a piece of that, the negativity, and dumped it into me. And now I dump it into my child. So there are things that we have to go so far back and just, not to make this a biblical show, but to go back and just say, God, please remove, because only He can remove it, or help identify those avenues that are embedded in us, because they are deep. They are in that cord. That cord is up in here somewhere. So they're deep rooted. And it's not something we can go get surgically removed. I can go get a facelift. I can go get I can have a heart attack, get a new pacemaker. I can go get new breasts, whatever. But that cord is still somewhere embedded. And everything that I'm searching for is within me. And I have to get it identified. And we're afraid of counselors. The African American community is afraid to talk. We're afraid to be transparent. And we need to be. Because someone today is watching this and someone is saying, wow, that was me.
Absolutely. And this is why I wanted to do this show, The Safety Net with Kendell Lenice, a talk show where you can feel safe to share your truth. I think it's important for us to share our truths, not only as women, but as people, because our stories help heal other people. And when someone sees you being courageous, they're courageous enough to tell their own story, to tell their truths. They're listening to someone else's story and say, you know what, I've gone through that. Wait a minute. This happened to me in childhood, and it's still showing up in my 30s, in my 40s, in my 50s, in my 60s. I have to figure out where this lineage came from. I have to break these cycles, because just like Temia said, she didn't even realize what she's saying to her granddaughter. It could sound innocent. But it could also sound like you're singling her out. You're making her, you know what I mean, from other people, or she's better, or she's worse, or she's less than. It can come with a lot of things. I always tell my daughters, I was like, let me know, they're 26 and 20. I was like, let me know if there's anything that I've done to you as a child. I always check in, because I'm like, I don't want you sitting on the couch saying my mother didn't do this, she did that. So I check in often. So far, I'm good. So far, I'm good. But you just don't know.
To receive it.
And receive
when my children came to me with some things. On the inside, I was like, well, who are they talking about? They couldn't be talking about me. But then I sat and I thought about it, and I was like, why wouldn't it have been me? The same thing they telling me that I did is what I received in my home.
Wow. If that's not showing up, but that's what we do. And it's up to us to really break the cycles of our past, because if not, because we're already inheriting them. We're already, like you said, through the umbilical cord, through the energy, through just genetics, through medically wise. Correct. But we're already doing that. But then we're doing that as far as behaviors. As far as what we see. And we're emulating and imitating, seeing that our parents. Negative. No, definitely not.
I am the life of a party. I am the life of a party.
Yes, you are.
If you knew my biological mother, Debbie,
she was the life
of a party. Whether she was sober or whether she was not.
She was
when I tell you she was a light in a room, when she showed up, even through her activities that were not good, people that talk about her will tell you, oh, your mother would give you the shirt off of her back. Whether she stole the shirt or not, she was giving you the shirt. So I had to understand that who I am, guess what, is the person that I didn't want to be, that I fought so hard. Like, I'm not like her. Like, I am not like her. When I look in the mirror, I am her.
You are her. You are her. And she was beautiful. She was beautiful.
And when I say beautiful spiritually, it was a chemical that damaged her. You know what I mean? We know the drug got to her, regardless of how, when, whether she wasn't strong enough to get off of it, whatever it was. I thank God for her struggle, because I am here to say I've never done drugs. Alcohol is something I do socially. So it's not something that I have inherited. Thank goodness. So if my children do it, they can't say it's something that they saw. It's something that they chose or a mistake that they made. But when I think about some of the generational things, I have to think of the good things too. I don't always want people on here like, oh my God, my mom was this. Oh my God, my mom was that. Lois taught me how to work. If I wanted something, you work for it. You go out, you get a job. And you work for it. The reason why people know I travel every chance I get, why? Because Lois had me on a plane at the age of 3, and now I'm 50, and I'm still jumping on those planes. She told me there's a world out there, and I need to see it, and that's what she showed me. So if I'm going to pull out the negative, I'm going to find that positive, and I'm going to make them work together. It's just that, I mean, it's not simple. I'm not going to say it's just that simple, because I'm now at an age that I can say that.
That you can say that because you've matured.
There you
you've
go.
grown.
There you go. And I'm still mature.
Right, and that's what life is. Life is a process. So I honestly, I thank you for sharing some of your truths with us. It's important for people to learn from you, and I thank you for being bold enough to be able to admit where you need help and to see the patterns, because that's when we begin to heal. That's when we begin to grow.
Still in the healing process.
What advice? And then we're closing out. But what advice would you give someone that's dealing with something right now? They just discovered the pattern. Hey, this is how I felt when I was a child. Now I'm going through this now. What advice would you give that person?
I think the advice that I would give that person that was given to me from a therapist is to write it down. Whether it be in your iPhones, your iPads. I know pen and pencil is becoming, something that people don't like to use. But write it down and read it. Read it to yourself. Before you can address your abuser, your mother, your grandmother, your sister, it might be a relationship with your sister or your brother, write it down and identify where Temia sits and what role she plays. There are many times, I've never been molested, but I hear a person that's been molested say, I didn't do anything wrong. You didn't. But there was still a role played, whether it was you were a child. That is still a good role. You were a child. You were innocent. So take that and understand that your innocence wasn't your fault. So write it down. Write that thing down. Read it over and over and over again. Be willing to forgive. Be willing to forgive. I didn't say forget.
Yourself
Correct.
First.
I didn't say forget. Be willing to forgive and be open to the healing. Be open to the healing.
There you have it. This is The Safety Net with Kendell Lenice, a safe place where you can come and share your truth. Temia, I thank you. I thank you so much for being a guest. I thank you for you're always willing to share your truth. And your truth heals others.
Thank you.
This is not the last time you'll see Temia Holloway. She has a lot in her that you did not even see today. She's sharing her childhood trauma, but like she said, just because you have trauma in childhood, it doesn't necessarily mean it has to stay with you in adulthood for forever. You want to find what's not so good and try to fix that, but you also want to celebrate the good in your upbringing. There is always a piece of hope, and I want to make sure you see that and you know that everybody is a work in progress. So thank you so much for sitting down with me, and thank you so much for joining us on this segment of The Safety Net with Kendell Lenice. God bless. All right, it's time for the Coach's Corner. You guys know I'm a transformational life coach, so this is the part of the show where I life coach you according to this week's conversation and topic. So we're talking about childhood trauma and how it shows up in your adult life, right? There are a lot of people out there struggling with childhood traumas and trying to wrap their heads around how they can go on in their lives as adults, still dealing with what they're dealing with or what they didn't deal with as children, or what they're now discovering as adults, what affected them as children. And it's showing up into their lives today. So as a life coach, you're my client, right? So if you started talking about that, I would ask you, even as a certified life coach, have you sought after help? Have you talked to your parents or the people that raised you? Have you written it down? And I think it's very therapeutic to write things down, your feelings, your concerns. I want you to voice what you cannot say to the world at first. Because if you admit the things to yourself, then that's when you'll begin to heal. So I want you to get a notebook, jot down your feelings. It's very important to get your feelings out. Some people don't like to talk to certain people, or they're embarrassed or ashamed to speak to people about what's really bugging them and what's really bothering them on the inside. They've just discovered that, hey, this happened to me as a child and I'm taking it with me in my adult life. Why am I doing that? But first, you want to just write down your feelings and thoughts so you can kind of organize what you want to say if you are going to see a therapist or a counselor or a life coach to try to help you move to the next level. Because you will never be able to move to the next level in life unless you deal with your past. It's very important to confront your past. You don't have to live in your past. You don't have to stay there, but you really need to confront your past. In order to heal and go to the next level in life, you have to confront your past, because we're all a work in progress. We're all trying to grow. We're all trying to move and advance in the next levels of life. But in order to do that, you have to, once again, confront your past. And it's very important to do that and not to be judged, because as people, it's easy for us to judge ourselves. We might not judge anyone else, but it's easy to judge yourself. So I think it's important to really see where you are in this life, whether you're 20, 30, 40, or 50. You have room to grow, and the time is now. No longer will we stand for just saying, well, that's just what happened. It is what it is. I am who I am, and I can't change. You can always change. Better yet, you can transform your life to the life you want. But first, you have to heal. You have to heal first, feel your feelings, grow, and then soar. This is the Coach's Corner with Kendell Lenice. All right, it's time for the grab bag. So the grab bag is a segment in the show that I will read your emails. There are a lot of emails that come in, and as a life coach, I try to give a quick, precise answer. Of course, you're going to need a whole session. You're going to need more than one session, and you're going to need repetition in whatever you're trying to do. So what I will do is answer the emails on air to give you the answers that you need. Hopefully, this is just the beginning, and this is just a start, so you can begin to grow and move yourself and advance yourself in life and be able to live an abundant life, right? Because that's what we all want to do. Everyone's talking about living your best life. That's what you want to do. But you have to heal whatever's going on. You have to learn from whatever's going on. And you have to really meet yourself where you are. So my first question is from a viewer, and she wants to know, how do I get over a breakup hurt? We've all been there. We've all been there, viewer. You have to be able to leave the relationship and really leave emotionally, mentally, and physically. Sometimes we have a breakup and we're still in that relationship mentally and emotionally, right? So you have to be able to leave that relationship. And of course, it's easier said than done. With life, with work, it's a process. But in order to get past that breakup, you want to reflect. And I'm big on journaling. I'm big on seeking the answers from within. And if you can't figure it out, then ask a life coach such as myself. So I'm glad that you really want answers, because that question can go for a lot of people out there. How do I get over a breakup? Nobody wants to be on the other end of that breakup where someone breaks up with you. Because the first thing you think is, how dare you? And your ego can't handle that. But Les Brown says ego is edging God out. So you have to find the purpose. You have to find God's plan within that breakup, because everybody is not meant to stay in your life forever. Some people are here for a season, a reason, or a lifetime. It's up to you to discover and listen to God's voice to discover why this person was in your life. Did you grow? Did you heal? Did you learn? Because sometimes we think of it in a selfish way. Well, we're here to teach them. But what if they're in your life to teach you something and you've learned that or you've taught that? So now it's time to move on, because everybody is not meant to stay in our lives. And that's what we have to understand. So when somebody wants to walk out of your life, let them. It allows them to grow. It allows them to heal. It allows them to go on to think about, okay, is there someone else better, or what did I do? Because I guarantee you they will try to return. But once you get the knowledge and once you seek it for yourself and once you begin to understand how life works, the more that you will forget about that breakup and you'll be on to the next. It's all about rejection. It's all about the ego. No one loves rejection and no one wants their ego shattered. So that's really probably what it is. And then if you're in a routine and you're used to seeing that person every day or once a week or twice a week or whatever your schedule is, and then now you don't talk to them, you don't see them, so you're missing something that you had. But it doesn't mean that you can't get over it. Any breakup, especially if you were in love, it takes time. But use that time to work on you, to invest in you, to get yourself together, to take a class. The best way to get over an ex, and I'm not going to say with another one, I'm going to say with you. Develop a relationship with you. Get to know, once again, what you like, what you don't like, and date yourself. Because once you date yourself and you fall in love with yourself, the breakups will become easy and you'll find the lesson and the blessing in the breakup. So I suggest, young lady, that you just go on with your life, because your life still goes on. It's still moving forward. It doesn't mean that you can't hurt. It doesn't mean that you can't cry. I suggest cry it out, get it out, write it out, and then move on with your life. Thank you so much for your question. If you have any more questions, email the safety net at KendellLenice@gmail.com.
That's it. That's all for this episode of The Safety Net with Kendell Lenice. As you know, we talked about childhood trauma. We all have it. We've all experienced it. But the difference between those who conquer it and those who wallow in it is asking for help. Don't forget to get help. Help is what you need. Les Brown says we ask for help not because we're weak, but because we want to remain strong. Thank you so much for tuning in to this episode, and a special thanks to Temia Holloway, our guest, and our assistant, Deborah Pettis. Thank you so much. Until next time, don't worry. I got you. The Safety Net with Kendell Lenice. God bless.
The one who knows my heart, I knew it from the start. When I'm lost, you're my tour guide. The only